I'm Elaine Walker, and I've been a member of the Council for about 3 years. I was recently elected Vice Chair, and I also serve as the Chair of the Committee on Equal Opportunity. Through my involvement with CPE, I've come to appreciate the work that is being done to promote higher education across the board for Kentuckians, to make it more affordable, to create workforce-ready certificate and degree recipients, and to lift all boats by lifting up those who may not have realized that they too could benefit from higher education. This conference is a tremendous opportunity for board members and regents to delve into some of the key issues facing higher education in Kentucky and to learn from policy leaders and from each other. While you're here, please take time to attend many of the sessions that are being offered where you can explore new topics and ideas and network with your peers. This year's theme is Better Together, and programming will focus on how partnerships with our communities, employers, and even other institutions can improve our market position and accelerate progress. To kick off the proceedings, it is my pleasure to introduce this morning's keynote speaker, Dr. Nancy Zimpher. Dr. Zimpher is Chancellor Emeritus of the State University of New York, SUNY, the nation's largest comprehensive system of public higher education. Prior to SUNY, she served as president of the University of Cincinnati, chancellor of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and executive dean of the professional colleges and dean of the College of Education at The Ohio State University. Her current role is serving as the senior advisor to the president at NASH, the National Association of System Heads, where she leads a comprehensive transformation agenda that uses collective impact and improvement science to increase credential and degree completion, expand social and economic mobility, and bring down the cost of college. She served on a number of education boards and is co-founder of Strive Together, a national network of innovative partnerships that holistically address challenges across the education pipeline. She's a great example of this year's conference theme, and I'm glad she was able to be with us today. Please help me welcome to the stage Dr. Nancy Zimpher.
To stand still, which is, what? Am I speaking here? Okay. Did you hear the part about how great Kentucky is? Because I don't want to have to go through that again. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to have those Kentucky roots. My mother was a Latin major. There weren't too many Latin jobs, so she also went to the business college. I have no idea if it's still alive, but I thank you for your leadership and your role with the council. I know that Aaron appreciates everything you and the chair do, and all the council members whom I met last night. And then there's Aaron. I know you know he's a rock star, but I just want you to know that I know he's a rock star. And one of the things that Aaron Thompson does that very few others do, he does double duty. He serves in a leadership role with the State Higher Education Executive Officers, which we happily call SHEO, and I just remembered that I have the clicker up here too. See, we're really totally together. And then he serves on the board of the National Association of Higher Education Systems. So those two organizations are like two sides of a coin. One does policy, state and federal policy. That would be SHEO, and we at NASH really work at program and practice on the ground. So we work directly with system heads and coordinating council chairs and commissioners. We also work with provosts and CFOs and CIOs and all the people that make a difference in the C-suite. But I did want to say a little bit about NASH. It covers the entire country. And in your theme, which I'm perfectly suited for, I really have this naive but important notion that the states can work together, that we can have higher education leadership literally from Hawaii to Maine and as far north as Alaska, and do more for educating America than we could ever do by ourselves. So that's kind of my mantra, as I talk with you about a theory of leadership. And by saying a theory of leadership, I put it into practice in a number of places. And one of them was through NASH. NASH was a very quiet organization. It was helpful, but it was not, in our opinion, moving the dial. And when COVID called for transformational thinking, we knew that we had to do something special. So this guy, he's not really standing on a balcony. This is Ron Heifetz. He is a scholar at Harvard, and he writes about adaptive leadership. And what he was trying to say to us, if you want to move this organization forward, and as a collective, you have got to get on the balcony. So I want you to think about that. Every day, you are doing battle on the ground. But every once in a while, you have to get above that. Take a look from the balcony at where your organization is going. So we adopted that look from the balcony to spend about 18 months trying to figure out how we could lead the nation in closing the achievement gaps by having these systems work together. So we did, this is, you know, a big announcement, a year or so ago, we did manage our way through a very impressive goal to build prosperity for America. I mean, that's what you're doing, and that's what we hope to do, system by system, as they work together. So, as Elaine mentioned, we're all about closing the achievement gap. We cannot have a country where only 50% of the college-going students and returning adults end up with a credential or a degree. That is unacceptable in this country. Remember President Obama, 2009, it's a moonshot. We're going to get to 60%, 65% by 2025. Oh my goodness, it's around the corner, and we have not adequately moved the dial. That doesn't mean you aren't moving the dial. That doesn't mean that there's amazing effort everywhere. But additive to the national statistic, we have work to do. So I was advised that I might not want to use this word, but I'm going to use it, but I'm going to tell a story about it. So the word is systemness. So every year during my 8 years at SUNY, I gave a State of the University address. Aaron does this, you presidents do this. After a while, I kind of felt that my constituency's eyes glazed over. I needed to do something that would get their attention. So I always had a lot of students working in my office as interns, and they informed me that John Colbert invented the word truthiness. I go, I care, I don't stay up that late, I don't know what you're talking about. Why don't we talk about systemness? It was meant to be a point of humor in my remarks, not anything you really had to take seriously, but it did have a definition, which sounded essentially like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That was it, that speech was over, that word was going in the file, except some guy in the audience put it on Wikipedia. And we go, wait a minute, this is our word. We're not gonna let you put that on Wikipedia. We're gonna put it on Wikipedia. Well, you know the rules. You have to publish, you have to put articles behind it, you have to convince Wikipedia, whoever they are, that this word is meaningful. So now you can put this word in your phone and it will say essentially, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. It's so obvious. The title of this session for the next 2 days says it perfectly. We have got to learn to work better together. Doesn't mean we can't compete on the field or in our research or in every other thing, bringing our costs down. We need to be competitive, but we also need to find a way to work together. So I'm laying out today 3 theories that I think might get us there collectively. And a theory is just a set of assumptions about how things work. It's not as fancy as you might think. And I want to level set by starting with a theory of leadership, and then talk about collective impact and improvement science, and then wrap it up with how can we do otherwise. This is what we need to learn to do. Working together, I've decided, is an acquired skill. I live in a condominium. Most of the people that live in that condominium have no idea how to live together. I'm just telling you. They all lived in houses. They're not very good at living together. It is an acquired attribute or skill. So is working together. So I have trouble remembering that I want to make 5 points. I do live in Cincinnati. This chili does have something like cinnamon in it. It's sweet. I don't know whether you've tried it. I tried it. I'm not eating it anymore, but it is helping remember that I have 5 points to make about leadership, starting with the spaghetti and moving to the hamburger sauce, onto the beans, onto the onions, and onto the cheese, and voila, you have a theory of leadership. My most important and guiding attribute of leadership is vision. Now, I'm going to complicate that with my second aspect of the theory, but I just want to say your vision, your passion, your personal calling to this work, and I know that's why you're all here, is the most important attribute of your leadership. And I did learn a lesson when I lived in the University of Wisconsin system, which was not easy because it was always Madison. It is still Madison. Have you ever heard this? It is Madison. I was not at Madison. I was at Milwaukee. So always trying to get a piece of the action when so much of the interest, football on out, landed at Madison. So I learned eventually that the University of Wisconsin was founded on the principle that reads like this, that the boundaries of the university, 175 years ago, Madison, will be the boundaries of the state. Now, Madison is an international asset, but for 175 years, the Wisconsin idea has stayed in place. And after months of wringing our hands about our vision at this wonderful urban university in the heart of Milwaukee, we decided a way to get a piece of the action was to name our plan the Milwaukee idea. That the boundaries of that wonderful urban university will be the boundaries of this community. And it guided our work every day that we were together. I'm a big fan of branding and logos. I just think it has to be substantive. It's not about a picture. It's not about a graphic. It's about what does that stand for. And when you think about your strategic plan, do not be afraid to name it. I consider, even when faculty are laughing at the Milwaukee idea, which, can you imagine they would do that? I said, at least they know we have it. It is our plan, and they recognize that. But here's the kicker. You really can't articulate a vision as a leader unless, and as you do it regularly, you convene the key people who must implement that vision. So there are principles about leadership that actually start here. You're going to see one. You get the people together first, and then you evolve a vision. But I am just going to tell you, most of you hold the pen, and if you run out of ideas and you can't get coherence or collaboration around the body politic, you're going to have to step up and guide that process. But the two go hand in hand. Vision and at the hands of many. And beyond that, you are set to create a set of actions. I've always found that naming those actions and being very explicit about them, actually I'm reading the script from CPE, but I'm telling it to you as a check for every entity that feeds into the vision and the goals of CPE and the alignment that I hope exists. I've been looking lately at campus websites who belong to systems. I haven't found one yet that says, and we are a proud member of the Kentucky CPE. I bet yours all say that. My point being, you are not alone. You live in a family, if not a system. You live in a family of coordinated activity in honor of the state of Kentucky. And it's not a bad thing to act like you belong to a group larger than yourself. Just go check your website. Just see if, you say anything about how important it is that Kentucky is working together. And from that, your actions, this is not rocket science, have to align with the vision and the mission of the council as well. It can be a yes and. You can have your distinction. But if we're going to move the dial across the state and across the country, we are going to have to figure out how we align our vision, our goals, our actions, and our accountability. And I know we're watching 60 in 30 by the numbers. I know that. But we have to have actions that we know can get us there when we evaluate and assess the contribution that each of our campuses is making. So we covered our bases at SUNY. Have you ever heard this? We measured everything. We collect data on everything. I go, yes, but do you use it? Do you know how to put it to use to move the dial? And that is both your responsibility and the responsibility of the council. And then I think this is really a message to not only the board, the council at CPE, but the boards of our campuses, both four-year baccalaureate and two-year campuses. Sustainability really lives at the hands of your board. It is your board who ultimately appoints the people who lead your campus. You do the searches, you bring committees together, you present the candidate, but the place it's most noticeable is when one president leaves and another one is selected. And I want you to think about this, because it's the only negative thing I'm going to say, I promise you. But every time I left a campus or a system believing in the Milwaukee idea, believing in the power of systems or the power of SUNY, the next hire went over here. You ever heard that? So sometimes you don't need to swing so far to correct what didn't get done. You see what I'm saying? You build on what's been done, and then you move. Excuse me, I always forget to breathe. I will breathe now. You move incrementally to other gaps in the leadership agenda that need work. And that's why you hire. You balance what you've had, but you don't throw it out. You keep it and you build on it. So that said, I can't say enough how important leadership development is. And I am always shocked when I talk to a president. I'm acting like I'm still at SUNY. When I talked to presidents who actually had no idea they were taking a job in a system, I'm just wondering how that happened. What did you think you were going to do? Because in my tenure at SUNY, I hired 54 presidents out of 64, trying to change the skids to say, oh, water, that's great. Trying to change the skids to say we are hiring for people who know how to collaborate. And that's in the search process, that's in the interviews, that is in the board decision. Is this a person who knows how to play well in the sandbox? And that, again, is an acquired skill. Not everybody warms up to working more broadly together. That said, what about a theory of collective impact? So to make the point that this theory works, I'm going to tell a story. So when I arrived in Cincinnati, I was struck by how few students had matriculated from the Cincinnati Public Schools to the University of Cincinnati, literally up the hill. What is going on? Well, this is what was going on, and it's not a whole lot better, but it's getting better because they're watching it. This is 109th graders moving from ninth grade to high school, graduating high school, getting admitted to a college, any college in our region, we checked them all from private to public to Covington and Newport to Cincinnati proper, the diocesan schools. Only in 2003, only 1 in 5 ninth graders made it to the finish line using the 6-year process. 1 in 5. Where were all the others? Why do we have an enrollment cliff? I'm sorry, I know the demography is changing, but there are still so many ninth graders who are not making it onto our campuses. We should never have an enrollment cliff, even as the demographics shift from decade to decade. So what did we do? Well, first we rang our hands. This is an absolutely lovely slide, and you're welcome to use it at any time, because whose fault is this? Who's going to fix this? It's not our job. This is, I think, the Albuquerque Journal. So after we got through that phase, where whose fault is it? Of course it was the university's fault, or of course it was CPS's fault. We got everybody whom we thought had a hand in the fix at a common table, at the hands of many, same aspect of the earlier leadership theory. And we took them all, after 3 years of hard planning, to what we call the Purple People Bridge. It is halfway between Covington and Newport and Cincinnati. And we pledged our faith to making the situation better. So, like most theories of action, you first of all define the problem. You try to blame others, then you realize maybe you're a part of the solution. You sit down at a table and you figure out what you're going to do. Well, we have a lot of graduate students at the University of Cincinnati. We had a great dean of education. My husband threw his entire commitment to UC to this issue, and we took some graduate students to a pub. This is a pub napkin. Never fail to consider what might be written on a napkin, because somebody in one of our meetings had said, we need a roadmap. We can't get from 1 in 5 ninth graders to college graduation or credential completion or 2-year degree without a roadmap. So the dean captured these graduate students, gave them an assignment to look at every step of the way. Today we would call this a process map. How do you go from birth to kindergarten readiness, to 3rd grade reading on grade level, to 8th grade math on grade level, to high school curriculum that will get you graduated and into some advanced education? What does the research tell us? Well, this is what the research told us. The prominent points in the pipeline start with kids arriving at kindergarten, only half of whom are ready for kindergarten. Actually, this map is a bit outdated because we did have a levy where we invested $20 million on birth to kindergarten. I mean, to me, our education system is this. It is beginning to career, career, career. This is a roadmap we need to apply, and we need to make sure that the points of entry that we control are working in favor of all those prior steps. So, unlike the theory of leadership, which has 5 stops or 5 pinpoints, this is collective impact. You start with getting the people at the table, the people on the ground, the grassroots, the grass tops, and then you strategize. I'm told this is the Avengers, justice for all. Again, a slogan, but one that people remember. All the people who like this, is it a cartoon? I have no idea. Understand it's justice for all. And we share data. This is not cheating. This is sharing data so that we can once again sustain, support. And the one thing that is said about collective impact is that to make it work, you need a backbone organization to sustain it. Our campuses are the backbone for our vision. But when we're working with the communities and the mayor of Bowling Green, we need a neutral backbone to keep us on schedule, keep us together, and not have one entity own the show in lieu of other entities that want an equal stake in the ground. You know, this is not rocket science. I have come all this way to speak the obvious. Have you noticed that? You know all of this. So I've got one more theory. I'm okay. This is a theory of improvement science. So perhaps you've heard this term. Many of you will remember the work of Edwards Deming. We didn't accept his theories around quality on the factory floor, but Japan did not have any trouble accepting his theories, and out of that came car makers par excellence. Once we saw the success of the Toyotas of the world, we generously invited Edwards Deming to the factory room floor. And I think it is fair to say he has transformed the way we manufacture products, not only in the United States, but around the world. And out of the wisdom of healthcare, about 30 years ago, they implemented a form of quality, the quality movement, otherwise known as improvement science. The attributes of improvement science start on the ground. You have to have people engaged in the solution who are doing the work. We don't do that. We appoint a committee, often led by the office of the blah, 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 and we come up with a solution and we go directly to implementation because we're always on the clock. We're always trying to solve a problem as quickly as we can, and just ourselves, just our little community of problem solvers. But what we've learned from improvement science is that you've got to be as close to the problem as you possibly can be. And you have to avoid this thing called solutionitis. And you have to test your idea. It's okay to get on the committee and get an idea, but it has to be tested in very small steps before it gets implemented. And I will say about this process, it's very rigorous. And the training that I have observed takes no prisoners. If you have to do tests of change before you can expand this idea, they won't let you get away with not testing them. We put them on 45-day cycles. We send them out to their campus, and they can't come back until they've implemented numerous what are called tests of change. And from that test of change with a small group of people, typically students, did I say this is about improving not only patient care in the hospital, but student care. We are so aligned with the healthcare industry, it's not funny. And when you go into a hospital, I have a trainer in improvement science who said this. I ask, will you show me to the quality office? I'd like to meet the director of quality. Who would that be in your organization? She goes so far as to say, if they don't have a quality office, I don't really belong there. And by the way, in healthcare, they train the executives first, which would mean you would be the guinea pig class. You, the executives who are running the organizations, will first learn improvement science before you impose it on the rank and file of your institution. This is incredible. And over the course of several years of holding national conferences at SUNY, I was present when Tony Bright, who brought improvement science to education through his work at the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, was talking about this improvement process, and one of the presidents of one of SUNY's flagships said to everybody there, "We are not a business. We are not going to implement a process that is meant for the factory room floor. We are intellectuals, we are program designers, we are academics. We do not need to be trained in this offline process of improvement." I was mortified. We have dug our heels in so deep around what is going to make the student experience better that we are avoiding the necessary steps to really change those awful legacy policies. It might be $10 to get a transcript. That's the first denial. How can you charge for a transcript when you're trying to get these people admitted? I know you have to make up the money somewhere else, but my point is every little step in the process map. I know this from Albany, New York. I've been to too many places. In Albany, 75% of the high school graduates in the city of Albany are going to college. 3 months later, 50% show up. What happened to the other 50%? They don't have a car. They don't have a checking account. They don't have a credit card. They don't have any cash to get the transcript, whatever the rule is. I don't even know if you pay $10 for a transcript. That wasn't my job. But I know we have multiple policies. In these tests of change, we learned from one campus, and by the way, 2 campuses in the council, Western Kentucky, again and again, they've been trained in improvement science. They know how to do this. And they did it with a campus they barely talked to before they started down this process. So whatever I was saying about improvement, in this test of change, they realized that the students weren't reading their email. It must have been about an advisement issue or whatever. So the first test of change is increase the number of emails that you send our students. If they didn't read the email in the first place, why are they going to read 5 more when what they want to hear is a text? I mean, you know this if you live on the ground, but the committee that was trying to write this legacy policy and get out of our own way, let's see what's next. I guess this is the cycle. It's very disciplined. Did I say that? It is a cycle of create the process map for every step of the student's admission to your college, break it down into incremental steps, improve where you're losing. You should know from your data where you're losing the applicant. Was it a phone call? Would it have been more emails? Would it have been a text? Would it have been a knock on the door? And then test that with 10 or 20 students. It is so amazing. You know, when you go to a hospital, I hope you never have to, and you're in a room when the doctor and the nurse professional walks in the door, what do? Before they even say hello, they push that little thing that cleanses their hands. Why do they do that? Besides the obvious, let's be clean. No. Hospitals are rewarded or fined if they have too high an infection rate. Sometimes I wish if we had a way to create incentives that would move the dial for us, which in hospitals, money moves the dial. You know this. I mean, care, of course. Excuse me, care. They had to solve the infection rate. It was too high. People were dying of infection, not the disease they came there to cure. Now we wash our hands. That was derived from hundreds of tests of change. I think I rest my case. What does that say? Whatever. We have now all these campuses, and I'm so proud that Kentucky is on this list, because this is just a few systems taking a chance that maybe this process So you've got a theory of leadership. You've got a theory of improvement science. And you've got a tool. That's what improvement science is. It's a tool to solve problems that are keeping us from adequately graduating for credential or degree the students that we are serving. And we can learn a lot from our friends in healthcare. So I'm reading every day more about these theories of leadership. I'm supposed to be retired, so I'm reading this book by David Brooks called The Second Mountain. Because what he told me is that I've spent so much time climbing the ladder that I've not thought seriously about my passion, about what drives me. Now, I dispute that, but this has really helped me clarify what influence I have in the field going forward to unite our work, to collaborate, to test change, and ultimately to improve, which will lead us to 60 in 30. That's the whole game. Moving the dial, the moonshot, remember where we started? I also am very optimistic that we can do this. This is a new one. Hope is a science. I thought it was just an emotion. I thought it was just everybody has hope, or we hope everybody has hope. But this book is teaching me step by step how to implement, isn't this crazy, hope. And then this iconic article, it's now more than 10 years old, in the Stanford Social Innovation Review, is the source for collective impact. And who did they feature in that article? Cincinnati. They took a lot of our steps, and as academics and theorists, they named it. Where have you ever seen that before? Academics name things. Then it becomes their thing, and that's okay, because we were the test site for collective impact. And now it is spread across the country. And Tony Brike is really a pretty special person. He led the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching certainly over a decade, and really has been instrumental in learning from healthcare and bringing improvement science to education. But you know, where in education, where in the pipeline? Only to K-12. There's no movement right now to bring this science to post-secondary education, except what we're talking about and those campuses that just experimented with this improvement process for that deadly concept called transfer. And we still have not solved transfer. And we've tested multiple, hundreds of tests of change, and still can't quite make it seamless for a student to transfer from place to place. And hot off the press is public university systems. I know you're not a system. You're a council. You're a coordinating board. Leveraging scale in higher education. This is the first book on systems since Clark Kirk created the California massive, wonderful system, which of course is now being questioned and changed, and that's okay. It's still the only academic perspective on what systems can do until we get here. So I leave you with this. Here are some common activities that it's the only thing I've written down. The rest is whatever you got. That's what I gave you. You do joint purchasing power, don't you? I mean, you're purchasing within your campus across colleges and schools, and some of you may even be doing joint purchasing contracts with neighboring institutions, or maybe a 4-year to a community college. This is the easiest one on my list, purchasing power. A financial aid consortium. Do you have a financial aid consortium where all of the public systems are using the same set of criteria or allocation? I don't know. When we had the FAFSA crisis, every campus was trying to solve that alone. When we're trying to say to the systems, find your way to this FAFSA challenge, but do it for everybody in your system, not one campus at a time. Number 3, A unified tuition policy. Tuition in New York was in the governor's purview, and frankly, it never made any sense to me. But I think if we are in charge of how tuitions are set or working collaboratively with the legislature and the governor's office, we can do that for all, not just for a few. A common technology platform, we had 4 or 5 technology platforms in SUNY, let alone could we have done it with CUNY, which I think we could have. Nobody was compelled to do that. Nobody was incentivized to do that. And lastly, and the ones that I'm calling common and easy, I have 5 more that are not common and easy. We can coordinate the search process for leadership development. I really don't know why we spend a lot of money bringing in a different search firm every time we have a major opening that we want to search for. In fact, some systems are growing. This is not a happy thing for search firms. They are growing the search firm within the campus, within the system, so that it's, I mean, in 8 years, I hired 54 presidents. Do you know how many other people we hired? Provosts and deans and directors and viscounts, kings and queens. And we hired out to do this when we set the standard for the leadership we are looking for. So I'm going to turn the page. Less common. Cal State University just implemented a thing called the Transfer Planner. You can transfer all over the state to any place you want to go at CSU without the problems that are affiliated with getting a student from A to B. Look it up. It's pretty darn amazing. But it's hard. It's very hard. And California has an amazing data set. They have a leg up. They've got lots of data on students. The second one is not so hard, but hard to convince people it might be worthwhile, and that is a centralized application service. You would call it a common app. A common app for the system? Oh my God, who does that? Oh, well, the University of California has been doing it for decades. You apply to UC. You name your priorities. They dispatch you to that campus. Now, those of you, we just had a chat about looking for campuses. This is a pretty foreign process. But Montana's doing it. The Montana system, it's a coordinating board, just like CPE. And they probably only have 3 campuses there, and I don't know. But they're doing it. And Hawaii's doing it. And, of course, California State University is doing it because they seem to be trying everything they can to get more students into college and out of college in California. And we have a partnership now, we NASH, with the provider who will give every advantage to the systems that want to adopt some kind of centralized application. By the way, this is how you get into medical school. Did you know this if you have children who've applied? If you want to apply to all 64 medical schools, you just check that box. They're all together. Every medical profession in the country uses a centralized application process. Wow. And so do all other medical professions, now engineering, now business, even the graduate school. I never thought it would happen. All the programs that live under the graduate school on your campus, if you're a graduate institution, they are using a centralized application process. Oh my gosh. Course sharing, oh dear. Now you're getting close. First of all, I have to acknowledge that my course looks like your course. And then I have to acknowledge that a student could take it here or could take it there. And we're even sharing credentials across campuses. Fourthly, a little harder yet, degree sharing. Oh my, you have totally gone too far. And lastly, a shared C-suite. I don't know how the State University of New York is going to provide ongoing support for 64 campuses. Now, the problem here is that we have a campus 30 miles from every New Yorker. We love that. We know that the campus is the economic backbone of that community. We cannot close that campus. But what we can do is reduce the administrative overhead, make sure that we're sharing courses, that our transfer system, I mean, all the things that I've said start in the C-suite and the economies that will drive us. I hope that I've made the point here, because that's all I'm doing these days, is talking about how we have to get our collective act together. And it was a privilege, Aaron, for you to let me go on about this for 45 minutes, but I'm done. Thank you. We do it?